good morning, good afternoon, good evening from wherever you are. Welcome to my third video on Learn Python. Okay, so we're done with introduction and getting started with Python. Now we're gonna move on to the main deal, coding. You're gonna start creating little code. You're gonna start coding up small programs. Okay, so but firstly, let's get into firstly, let's talk about our scheme. Okay, I'll be releasing our scheme soon. I will show you how it's gonna look. Okay, I'm gonna show you all the topics we are going to what we are all the topics all these topics we are going to be looking into, and there'll be a little project and assignments, waiting just to test your knowledge, right? So without further ado, let's get into the main meat of the soup. All right. So remember last time we downloaded Python. We downloaded the software Python. We also downloaded PyCharm and Visual Studio Code. These two and yeah, these two. We downloaded them. Okay. So now we are going to use them. But first, let's look back into this ideally. So just go to the B part, P, and you see Python 3.9. I have 3.9 and 3.10. So for this, let's look at 3.9. But it also can also work if you have 3.7, 3.5, 3.6, 3.8. Okay. So now this is the shell. This is what you see firstly. This is like the first thing you see. So now what do we do? In the last video we saw that when we did print hello world, sorry, I just saw on keyboard. Let's get it up. Okay, press enter and bada bing bada boom, you have it written out here, hello world. So what we're going to be doing now, okay, this is the shell. We are in the Python shell. You could see ideally shell. So now we've got the basics print hello world. So this is just the basic one line of code in Python to print hello world. You can also print now, just bear with me, and hello and welcome. I know there's a typo here, sorry for that. Welcome to Learn Python with Jamin. Now, what if say I did this. Now we're going to dive into this syntax errors. We're going to enter into this. This is what we're going to be doing today. We're going to discuss of the syntax. What does syntax means, and we're going to understand why we get errors when we don't close these quotes. And it's more than this quotes. If you see, it doesn't run, so oh, run, nice, never known. See, without this in the shell, without this closing bracket, it will not run the code, because you open the parenthesis. Sorry, it's a parenthesis. You open the parenthesis and you did not close the parenthesis, so it will not run. Okay. But if you are creating a program, this can actually cause a bug with the whole program not working, because it's the shell and just one line of code. Okay, so if you also did this, let's say invalid syntax, and then you can also use single quotes. It will also, sorry, to also work the same. All right, same when you use double quotes. So, but if you start with a double quote, you must end with a double quote. If you end with a single quote, what happens? See, it's not, this place is still green. It's normally supposed to be black, but because it's not, you didn't end with it, now see, it's turned black. So syntax error again. And then the same thing if you start with a single quote, syntax error again. Now we're going to understand how to resolve all these errors. Of course, it's simple now because you just know the mistake you did. But when writing complex programs, it's going to be very hard. No, you have to, but that's one of the beauties of Python. It is readable. So it also specifies exactly where the error is. Okay. So, you know, I'm just, let's talk of this. So now we've seen the print hello world, and we've seen how the print function works. Now, what makes this print function work this way? All right, we're going to dive into why this is required. This quotes, single or double, they are required in order for this to run. And also the brackets, like you could see here, without it, it didn't run. Over here, let me show you. Um, another error. See, this name hello is not defined. It's telling you where the error is. And then okay, we'll dive into that. The lines and staying line, this one, and that was sweeter and better and more easier. So you see that these are requirements. This is a requirement. Okay, this is a requirement when programming with Python, when using the print statement in Python. Sorry, this quote, single or double, the only reason you cannot use quote is when you have a variable. And right now, some people will not understand what a variable is. If you've not been into programming, if this is your first time, you will not understand, you will not get the concept of variable. So I'll take time to explain that later. So let's just say Python, that's a variable. And then right now I put a, no need for the quotes, Python. You see, no need for the quotes when you are in the variable. Why? Because the quotes are already represented here. That is also under another concept called data types. So now we've looked at a lot of things. Let's review them. So in our coming, I'll discuss of, what is the name? Discuss of why and how this split statement works. Why is, so we already know that these quotes and parentheses are requirements. And then we're going to talk of data types. We're going to also talk of variables. We're going to talk of syntax errors. I'm going to talk of other Python syntaxes. Because when you're writing large lines of code, everything syntax is just like an instruction, a way you should write it. Like when you're writing a letter, you put the address here, you put this one here. You, when you're writing informal letter, this is how it should be. When you're writing formal letter, this is how it should be. That is what we are going to be taught. That's how syntax is. That is exactly how syntax is. Everything has its own lines and instruction, and you have to abide by that rule. Okay, so I'll be so I'm going to just clean this all up and start again. Let's look fresh and new. Okay, now it's opened. It's opened. So now what we are getting into, we're also excuse me. We're going to get into the first, this print statement. How does it work? Why does it work? Now this print, take it as a command. Okay, yes, it's a command. It's a command telling the computer to do what? Output this, to put this out. And then if you say print, you can just type you say print, you will type this. So how will the computer need to identify? It's going to be hard to identify this. You can't just. It's going to be complex. So what it does now, print. You put what you want to print out in parentheses. Yes, you all cover them up so that it will know what it's printing out. Okay. So now print this. So now in this code, you can also do hello. Now, another very good reason for this parenthesis, why I mean to cover up, you'll be like, why do you cover up? You already have the codes. So let's say we have A equals to John. Now BI print, sorry, print. Don't forget the print has to be in all small, lowercase. Okay. Hello, hello, John. Ooh. Oh, sorry. See, missed it. Are the errors? You always get errors. Errors is a normal thing. So you have to get used to it. Hello, E. See, hello, John. Too much space, right? Good morning, John. You see, it depends on what this A is. So this is another reason for this bracket holding it up together. If this bracket was not there, it would be scattered. Hello, A. Missing a parenthesis to call print. Did you mean print? So Python is also going to help you identify those errors. Okay, so also going to help you identify those errors. So we've understood why this print statement works. It's a command. It's telling the computer output this, and what is this inside the bracket? What is inside the bracket? So it's going to output everything inside the bracket, and then specific is also going to output what is inside the parentheses. If nothing is inside the bracket, it checks if it's a variable, and a variable which is this, and then it now outputs what is in the value of the variable, which is John, and then adds it. So it's going to be something like this: print hello, sorry, print hello. Still brings out the same thing. It gives us the same result as this print hello John. See, so this looks for the variable. Okay, John, put in what is in John. All right, now that is how that print statement works. So now you see we've covered something right now in this video, and that is how the print statement works. Okay, so I'm going to create, so give me some time. I'm going to pause this, create some decent write-ups to explain variables. Okay, what and how the variables work. So we'll pause the video at this point. All right, so I'm back, putting some things about variables. So yes, finally made this. Well, we talked of syntax and variables. So we also talked of what are syntax, how does it work, examples of syntaxes. So what are syntaxes? Those are like the instructions that you have to follow when you're writing codes. If not, you get errors. How does it work? Works like when you're writing a letter or an essay, there are instructions you have to follow. Okay, I hope you get. When you're writing, so how does it work? When you're writing a letter or an essay, there are instructions you have to follow for it to work. And examples of syntax is like you saw that print, open bracket, um, and show. So like we saw the print, open bracket, quote, hello. So that is a syntax. Okay. So now the next thing we are going to be looking at are variables. Now, what are variables? Well, we could say variables are they are containers. Okay, let's take them for containers. And now in a container, okay, in a container, there are let's say if you have you've created a container, but the container is empty. So it's when you assign a value to it. Now these things right after the equals to are values. So the equals to is there to signify that okay, the container, and after me is the value. So that is also a syntax. That is to show another Python is filled of programming is filled of syntaxes, you know. Yeah, maybe in a calculator, if you are typing something and you did something and you typed an incorrect something to show syntax error, that is to show that that is breaking the instructions of mathematics. Okay, so this is how this is too. So a is the value, a a is the value, and right after it we have the equals to. Okay, the equals to, and let's say we have a equals to test. So now the value of a is what? Test. Now same with, if you can also see, print, sorry, syntax errors. You're gonna spell the whole of, okay, that's a name error, not syntax error. Now test, print. Now we now can also do b equals to, now remember this, test, syntax error, unterminated string literal. So at line 1, that's, we'll get to those lines later. So that is to show you that both in variables there are also syntax, there are rules you have to follow, you know, both in the variable area aspect. So if you do the b equals to test, name error, test is not defined because there is no quote to signify that that is a string. It's not a variable. So if there is no if there is no string, it takes it as a variable. And what does it do when it finds a variable? It start looking for text all over again. Start looking for where there is text, and if it checks no text, puts in a name error. So that's how variables work. And variables can also be overwritten. So testing, sorry, if I do print a, now what do you expect to happen? Should it give us text as it gave us? No, variables can be overwritten. It give us testing. So you can now also overwrite it. A equals to test, sorry, test back again. So variables can be overwritten, and that is just, so I hope you could see this. Variables too can be overwritten. So print a, variables can be overwritten. That is just a brink. Like, that is just few things that variables can do. Variables can do a lot. So we know what are variables, how do they work, and now relate them to things in the real world. So if we related it to a container, right? Yes. So let's say you have a bucket. Okay, yes, a bucket, and let's call it. You can also create not only letters. Bucket equals to what is inside the bucket? Water. So you print I am a bucket filled with bucket. I'm a bucket filled with water. So variables can don't have a specific name. They can be any name. They can take on any name. Okay. So yes, that is also one thing variables can do. So in this video, I'm not going to go into a lot of things variable can do because I'm already pushing my boundaries. Like I don't want to fill you guys up with too much information. So I'm just going to take syntax and variables. In the next video, we'll be talking of variables in depth. I would that video, the next video will all be about variables. And this one we're going to talk about data types. We'll explain what data types are and how they work. Okay. So thanks for thanks for sitting in and enjoying this video. And as always, keep learning,